That's a great question.
Good question.
Great
Congratulations
questions.
on the
We
show.
love
I
it.
appreciate
Excellent
you.
questions.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate you.
If you can't tell, I'm geeking out really hard. This is a huge junket to be a part of.
We don't need roads.
Obviously, we no longer have the great J.R.R. Tolkien around to use as a source when sort of adapting stories of Middle-earth. But I was wondering if you could imagine sitting down with him, turning on the first episode of Rings of Power, maybe binging the whole first season, and when it's over, leaning over and saying, what did you think about this part? What is the aspect of the show you would most love to get his thoughts on?
Good question.
He's going to have a whole heap of questions, so
It'd be cool to converse with him.
I would be lovely. It'd be an honour.
And smoke a pipe and have a pint in the pub in
Nice.
Oxford.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Oh, could you imagine having a pint with him? Like he's sort of the guy that like you pay for beers all night if he'll just keep telling you stories.
Yeah.
I just pick his brain. I just want to. He was so genius that I just want to know where it all came from. How go for a pint in Oxford sounds great to me.
Yeah, I'll come join. Let's make it a party for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I hadn't invited you. I was just going to go on
Well,
my
I'm
own
just
with
turning
him.
up, Lloyd. There's no question about it.
Well, though we don't have him literally, we have his texts. And he put so much of his life and his personality and his imagination and his spirit in what he wrote that I think he would be pleasantly surprised by how deeply we've gone into his writing. And in terms of what I'd want to know, like the music is so good, and music is such a part of his writing, I'd want to hear his take on the music.
I think mine would be like, why Galadriel have to suffer so much? Like, tough. By the time that we meet her, like, she's lost so much. And I just always think with these, like, with all writers, I'm just like, how do they make their characters suffer? Like, that must be so painful. So yeah, I'd be quite self-involved to just ask a lot about Galadriel.
I personally would like to know how he feels about the world of the Harfoots. Yes. Because I think we've done him proud myself, but I would love to sit and chat with him about them and the history that we've made for the Harfoots. That would be my number one. Totally self-interested.
If you get the chance, take it, run with it. Why wouldn't you?
Probably ask him about the casting of Isildur. I'd just be like, do you think I did him justice?
Did I do it right? I mean, you just kind of go, is this what you imagined? That my character, our character to be? I'd like to know what you think. I just want to know everything. What he thinks of everything.
I would love, even though it's been a joy to have a sort of uncertain sketch of a character, the character I play, Celebrimbor, because as an actor you can then build on and use your own imagination and the heads of department can all chip in. But I would love to ask him for a final version of Celebrimbor's heritage, and because he's left us with 2 or 3. Just out of interest, I would like to know the final version.
I think to just the characters that aren't necessarily canon characters, I'd really like to hear his thoughts on and what he would say.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I think there's a lot of conversations about non-canon characters, but also female characters, characters of color. There's a big conversation happening that is, it's for them. It's good to have. Good to have. Good for them. But I have. I would like to have that conversation with him. I do think he would give a resounding F yeah. That we're doing what we're doing.
I think I'd love to hear how he embraces some of the rocks, excuse this pun, that we've kind of uncovered. That, that there's areas of his works that are so vast and so detailed. And of course, there's areas where there's still some divine scripture, but it doesn't stretch as far. And we've kind of exercised those stretches a little bit more. So I'd love to see if that kind of fit into his world and his mind as he would have seen it, or whether he would be surprised that maybe we've drawn something out that he hadn't thought of.
For Elendil, there are, I think, about 5 sentences in the Notion Club papers. One of the more, one of the earlier bits that his son published, Christopher Tolkien. So just to find out Elendil's voice and how he felt what his life was in the early years in Numenor, and how that has shaped him as a human being. So I would just I'd be drilling down into him about all of that story. It'd be fascinating.
Khazad-dûm.
how does he feel about how that looks? Because it looks pretty sick, in my opinion. But I think he obviously would have had an image of what it looked like in his head, and I'd like to see how it works with that, because it's pretty cool.
I think we're shining a light onto lots of areas of this second age, which the story hasn't been told on the television yet. So we're shining lights into these corners where he's set up story, and he's sort of given us the bare bones of story, and then we're JD and Patrick are really fleshing those things in. It'd be lovely to hear how he feels about all the myriad of complex and deep and rich characters that are sort of coming out of the woodwork. I hope he'd be very proud of of what he's given us and how it's been built on.
I can't say anything about it, but I'm gonna say the last episode.
I haven't seen the last episode.
That's the part I'd love to ask him about, but I can't say any more, unfortunately.
I'm calling you in like 8 weeks, and
exactly.
All right, that's it.
We'll chat then.
Yes, fair enough.
One thing I was just going to say that I want to address, because it's interesting, this idea of kind of binging, and I would recommend, and I don't know how you guys feel about this. This to me is not a series that I think you should binge.
You should savor.
I think you should savor it. We've got a lot of story, and I think we've done a really good job of just really introducing or reintroducing a lot of these characters and worlds to audiences, whether they're super well versed in the lore or they're just arriving to it at the first time. So my recommendation is to, just really, in the way that you have a great book and you don't want to read it so fast that you just finish, you just want to kind of take your time with it and really sort of enjoy and rewatch even, So you might want to watch some episodes, more than once, just to kind of really just take in all of the detail.
It's funny. George Lucas always said that the worst part about directing Star Wars is that he didn't get to see Star Wars. And Peter Jackson even recently said that he'd been considering hypnotherapy so he could forget making Lord of the Rings. When you're a part of a project like this, how much of it is it a downside that you'll never actually be able to watch it and see it the way that fans do?
I dealt with that when I took the job. I knew when I said, because I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings. And it was just a moment that I had to take and know that things would be different now, It's been a huge part of my life. And now it's just a little different. But hopefully in time, I'll get that gift back again in some way.
Or you'll just get hypnotized.
Our worlds are so separate, and it was kind of a battle to get onto other people's sets sometimes, and so everything was so separate that we saw the first 3 episodes like a month ago, and I was so excited to watch everyone else's because I had no idea what I was about to see. So there's a fraction that's yours, and then the majority of it is new.
So was it hard to get on other people's sets? Like, were you trying to sneak over? Like they were just trying to keep you guys apart?
Yeah, I think I was most successfully the one that got to do it. So I had a hat, flip my ID and put a mask on and just kind of sneak into most of the sets.
I went onto your set before dressed as Durin.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
And no one batted an eye?
So, just kind of, who's going to say no to Durin? Get out of my way.
Our worlds are so separate that when we watched the episodes for the first time, it was so cool seeing, the dwarves, and especially because I'm a Numenorian, I know my world, but I'm watching it as a fan of all the other worlds. It is amazing.
Yeah.
That's
a good point. I've never thought about it like that. No, because when I think about it, I often think that, I agree that you'll never experience it for what it is truly as an audience member. But you're right about the other worlds. But I always think that, I remember what I had for breakfast that day. Or it's like, we filmed that 3 weeks before that, but that's the scene after it in the show. You always have these stories.
I remember, I'll look at a shot and be like, I remember someone holding my jacket off the shot, and I was like, you look really close here. I'm like, I could notice it, but you zone in on all the finer details that no one else would think of.
Do you know what's really interesting about that? I'll just jump in quickly. Was when we got all the scripts and when we were in New Zealand, and you get some of the story revealed to you by the script, but then because of the nature of the schedule and where we were, and you didn't get to visit each other's realms or worlds. So we actually saw the first 3 episodes recently. So we did get that experience of thinking, or I had an idea of what it might be on the page, but then see our friends' work in that world with everything in place was you had quite a few I had a few fanboy moments in there.
So many different realms, so many different characters, races, species. So I only saw a little sliver of what we're sharing with audiences. And when we saw the first few episodes, there was so much I had no idea was in it. I feel like I'm still getting a sense of that as a viewer.
We've had the chance to watch 3 of the episodes, and what was fantastic about that was we suddenly realised that actually I knew what happened in my storyline, but watching everybody else's storylines, I hadn't actually seen a lot of any of that. So it was like I could see it for the first time. I was really excited by how new that aspect, even though I knew the script. Watching my colleagues, friends, perform felt like it was an amazing event.
The way that they created the show, no matter if we hadn't seen them before or not, even when you walked into set, you felt what you're talking about, that sense of magic and wonder, because they were built so beautifully. The artistry, the work, the crew, just the New Zealand, they built these things with so much heart, so that even in that moment, we had magic, and a lot of us didn't do that. So, and we saw some episodes the other day, and I must say, I felt immersed as if I was doing it for the first time, even watching my own performance. Because I felt that I could see the story as well.
You took your own breath away, didn't you?
I was like, who that?
I got lost in my own eyes. It was amazing.
Your words.
It's, all of us are actors, obviously, and we know a lot of actors. It's rare to watch someone on screen and forget that you're watching a friend. And in our case, when we watched the 3 episodes, like you just said, we watched it together. All I could think of is I'm transported. I've forgotten that I'm watching my own friends, and I was fangirling over my own friends because we sort of protected ourselves from exploring the other worlds. We just sort of stuck to our own worlds, and I was in awe of their talent.
Well, we get another level, which is because we all know each other and we like each other so much, we get to experience it on, for me, a deeply satisfying level of seeing the people I know and like do what they do well. So I may not get to see it as a fan in that sense because I never get that abstraction from it. But what I do get to do is go, I love Sophia. Oh my God, I love seeing her work. That's another layer that, frankly, is worth the trade-off.
And also being with such a close cast as well, so also getting the experience that anyone who's outside of the cast won't experience as well. Like we experience something different, I think, to sort of other people who will be watching this, is getting to see all the investment and all of the love that we have for each other as human beings, as well as the characters that were developed and brought to life. It was really something, it was a very special day.
We shot it so long ago that I can't remember what was happening.
I look like a completely different person as well. I was grown. I was maybe halfway through puberty. I'm probably like
you through it now.
Guys, the experience of seeing the original Lord of the Rings trilogy was for me one of the most memorable and probably influential movie-going experiences of my entire life. And the small detail I remember is my mom took me out of school each of the 3 release days to go see them in the theater. And that's kind of the small morsel, the detail I always sort of associate with that experience. When you think back to your experience seeing those films for the first time, what is that small detail that you remember about those theatrical experiences?
Yeah, I mean, it revolutionized film for me, and it still holds up today. Like when you watch them, you don't think that they were made 20 years ago. So I'm a huge fan.
I mean, for me, I saved all my money to like buy the DVD. I bought a DVD player and bought a DVD. It was like the first one that we had in my family, actually in the neighborhood. And buying that was one of the things that was most influential in my life as an artist, because not only the movies, what we felt, the magic, it was the first time that I saw behind the scenes. Yes. And the featurettes like allowed me for the first time to understand that there was a world in which we could actually live in. This was a profession. I could dedicate my life to it. And it truly shifted the gears and the path of my life in that moment. Yeah.
Weren't the DVD cases like different color? It wasn't Fellowship green, and I want to say like Two Towers was red. Like they were different
There
colors.
were so many versions. Like you could, there was like each one had like four. I bought the box set that came with like a Gollum thing. My washing cars and cleaning lawns and a lot of things. My money for a long time went to buying these things.
Mine was the Balrog. I was that filling the screen in the cinema was just, and also I was like 11, so it was probably one of the scariest things I'd seen. And we went to see The Fellowship of the Ring 3 times.
For me, it was around Christmas, so it was like an added Christmas gift. I remember that very distinctly, just being so excited. Like there was Christmas already, and then we got to see the Lord of the Rings films. And I definitely remember, particularly the third film I saw in London. And I remember going into it with someone who wasn't a Tolkien fan, and I'd warned him quite strongly that he wasn't allowed to make any derogatory comments. And he ended up coming out with tears in his eyes and just saying how amazing he thought it was. So it was like an added gift to have someone come on that journey with me for the third and final film.
Yeah, obviously I was a bit older when that all came out, so it was mainly the first, because I think what you're describing is that first experience of receiving Tolkien, which for me was reading The Hobbit at the age of 11. Yeah, so that was the first time that my mind just went, oh, this is extraordinary. There's a different world that I had no idea about.
Yeah, I went to the cinema and watched it as well the day it came out. I was negative, 4 years old? But no, I didn't have much to do with it. All I sort of knew about Lord of the Rings was like, Smeagol and some guy gets his finger chopped off, and that's what I remember. Like, if you asked me as like an 11-year-old boy, I was like, "What do you know about Lord of the Rings?" I'll be like, "Frodo and he loses a finger," and that's all I can say. But obviously, I've done the dive, and I think it's quite cool because I've experienced it a lot later than everyone else. Because everyone experienced it when it came out, and I'm 15 years late to the party, but. It's really special, and it's really crazy how like it's really held its weight.
And it's a testament to the films, that they came out 20 years ago. And I think part of that is like the use of practical effects, which I was so excited when we were using that too. So I think that's made them really timeless. And you're a reminder that it was 20 years ago. Like, what?
I actually didn't have Tolkien in my life before this show, so I hadn't ever seen the movies actually until I got the part. So I was in New Zealand, and there were a couple of cast members out at the same time, and there was actually a showing of all of them, extended versions in the cinema, like one full day, and we just sat in the cinema and watched all of them. And it was like, I just remember having absorbed so much information, not even being able to talk about it afterwards, because I was like, I can't even, I've just taken in so much. So that was that was my experience.
I think one thing I'm really excited about, because I saw the films as an adult, but I have all these young nieces and nephews, and they know that I'm involved in this. They don't know much about my character, the story. And I'm excited, there are, of course, adult fans that are chomping at the bit to see this, but I'm excited for younger fans where this is going to be their introduction to Tolkien, and so that they are inspired to do a deep dive and sort of go back to the books and the literature. And when I talk to my nieces and nephews, and they know that, now they've seen a little bit more, they know I'm playing a queen and the Queen of Numenor, just their sense of excitement and how excited they are to see the show, that makes me very giddy.
I went to see it. I was 19 years old, and the first thing I did after seeing it was go and climb a tree and fell out of it. I was a kid again. I got transported from my childhood.
19.
I'm gonna climb a tree and everything. I'm some sort of elven warrior, whatever. Have you fell out of it? I thought, no, I'm not. At 19 years old, A bit of arrested development going on there.
Mine was very different. My first Lord of the Rings experience was the 1978 animated Ralph Bakshi movie.
Wow.
Which only made, as far as I remember, the Fellowship of the Ring and the Two Towers. They never got to make part 2, but I was obsessed with it. The poster, I had the soundtrack album, and I wrote a play of the Lord of the Rings based on that.
Wow.
Hitherto unproduced, sadly. But
I'm available if there's any offers coming.
We'll do it.
But that was my obsession, and it really was an obsession, capital O. It really was.
My childhood was highly censored, so I wasn't allowed to watch them. But all the kids in my neighborhood had seen them, and we would play like elves, dwarves, hobbits, and stuff. And so I remember piecing the story together from like orally from friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
Who would you play? So my sorry.
Who would you play?
I was all like dwarf all the time. They're like, you're short, man. Yeah, so my first experience was oral, not visual.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My flatmate actually, my flatmate at uni was a huge fan of Lord of the Rings. And so every Sunday we would order this pizza from this pizza place that was £8.99. And we would sit and watch Lord of the Rings. And she would kind of make me watch Lord of the Rings. And every time I saw it, I just thought, it comes out and kind of literally runs the sounds, the dynamic of each scene, of each line, of each piece of text. It sort of comes out and hits you in a way that even for someone who wasn't necessarily, running to watch it, it has an impact for all, regardless of your, of your stance, that will hit you in a way that I didn't expect, and then left it there for so long, and then was cast in the show and got a Facebook message saying, "You're welcome."
I'm going to cut you guys loose on this. In the world of Middle Earth, I feel like there is such a divisible line between good and evil. It's such a prevalent theme in all of Tolkien's work. And I've always wondered, I guess, how or if that has any impact on the actors. Do the actors who play good characters in the series have a different experience on the show than the actors who play evil characters?
Ooh, that's a great question.
I feel like everyone in this story thinks they are the hero, especially at this point. I mean, everyone is trying to do right by their little corner of the world, and some of those beliefs about what is right, that's in conflict with some other people. I mean, for everyone, they're trying to protect what they care about, and it's about how deep into the darkness they're willing to go in order to do what they think is right.
Nice one, Leon.
Thank you.
I mean, I had a lovely time.
But I think there's always, with our characters as we go through the series, there's always the risk of being drawn from one side to the other. Mm. So, you always keep that in mind. And, because that's very Tolkien as well.
Well, I do think it's a bit more gray than that, and also because we have the luxury of portraying Middle Earth almost in its adolescence, that it is about the rise of evil, where the conflict of good and evil, you're right, is quintessential Tolkien. But what's great about what we're doing is that because it's a television show and because each episode is almost its own film, we get to go in depth about why it is darkness, why the light is blooming, like that it's denser than that. Light and darkness smacks of cartoonishness, and there's none of that in our show.
I think it's a bit more nuanced as well.
That's
Obviously,
nuance.
you have Sauron, and you might have somebody like Gil-galad or Galadriel, but then you've got like a plethora, a myriad of characters in between that, and some of them might start out with good intentions. Some of them, maybe they might have been burnt by life and maybe not so good. And there's a crossover where it's a journey of discovery for everybody, and everybody finds themselves moving forward.
See, I would think so. I've had lots of thoughts and discussions about this. I think it's more hope over despair than good versus evil for me. And that's something like that kind of in the Peter Jackson films, for example, the exploration of Theoden and Denethor was quite different to the books, because Denethor in the books is much more just like despairing. And yeah, I find that really interesting. Like, where's the line of like, when do you kind of also become, let's say, evil through kind of lack of action? And it's really, and I think the bravery in it is like huge for me.
Yeah.
The Hobbits is just so brave.
Yeah, and he's not binary in any way. Once you delve deep down in there between good and it's just he lives in the grey, and the fallibility of all races within Middle Earth. Everybody is, as he would put it, it's all about the fall. You know, you're tempted to that dark side wherever you are. So yeah, I agree with Charlie. It's that shifting nature of your own morality and how you cope with the decisions and the choices that come your way.
The nature of existence, which is another. That's what he is. That's why he's so timeless. Like Shakespeare, that's what he writes so well.
I don't really think about I know that, those themes are really prevalent in Tolkien's work, and I think that there is a grey area between the good and evil as well. But I don't think in those terms when I'm doing a character or when I'm actually in the world performing or doing whatever it is we're doing, researching, preparing, because I think that would just be putting like a judgment on it. I just prefer just to do the work that I'm doing, and then whatever is made of it is made of it.
I think every character has the capacity for evil and good. You know, I think we're actually, despite the fact that we are playing kind of legendary Tolkien characters, or at least some of us playing new characters, you know, we want to explore kind of the human emotional scale of these characters, make them relatable as well to an audience, for them to fall in love with us and the characters.
Guys, I love you so much. If you can't tell, I'm geeking out hardcore, so thank you for helping me keep it together. This is a huge junket to be a part of, and seriously, I know you have a very busy schedule, but I love you guys, and congratulations on the show. I appreciate you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate you. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you guys. This is not lost on me how big of an honor it is to do this junket, so seriously, I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.